Mercedes-AMG Interview Lounge.
Don McPherson, he used to be he was an All-America quarterback at Syracuse University. He went on to play professionally in the NFL and up in Canada. And he began his work on gender-based violence prevention a long time ago, like back in 1994. Don, good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Hello.
You're coming in live, man.
All right.
You're coming in hot. Coming in hot. You're falling in the snake pit as the snakes are twisting and turning.
All right.
This is Danielle Monaro.
Good morning.
Hello, Danielle.
That's my sister. My other sister, Gandhi.
Hi.
Hello, Gandhi. How are you?
Doing well.
Well, he's got a radio voice.
Yes.
You do.
I've got the face for radio, too.
Oh, stop it.
No, wait a minute. No.
Stop.
See, when you say that,
Say that.
when you're saying that, you're implying that we're ugly. Don.
Yeah, that's not nice, John.
No, you all are beautiful people.
Oh, see, you were screwed. You just walked in here, and this interview has gone straight to hell.
Right away.
Okay, if I say something that isn't quite on target, feel free to correct me, as I know you will.
Okay.
The years of late, especially, we've been #MeToo movement. We've been talking about gender equality, elevating people up to, at the very least, where they need to have a foundation where they have an equal chance to live and be treated equally in this world. You started diving into this in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And so you have a perspective from back then, and you've seen it change from then to now.
Right.
Gender equality.
Right.
So has it changed that much? Are we on the right path, or is it getting worse, in your opinion?
You know, we're on the right path. It just hasn't changed fast enough. I think that I always say that, like 20 years ago, if I was talking to a group of men for an hour, I would spend 45 minutes trying to explain to them that there's a problem. Now I don't have to explain the problem. We know it's there.
Well, they've been told that there's a problem. Do they believe there's a problem?
Yes, they do. They do. And part of the reason what Me Too did was a lot of men felt indicted. A lot of men felt blamed. That's fine. What a lot of men also felt was failure to protect the women in their lives that they care about. They heard their mothers, their sisters, their daughters saying, yeah, this happened to me too. So for the first time, it wasn't a woman on a poster or on a PSA. It was a woman in their lives. And so for the first time, men heard their failure to protect the women that they care about.
Well, I never thought of that part.
What made this important to you? Like, why did this become what you wanted to, be part of?
Partially because of what I just said.
Okay.
Like when I was 29 years old, there's a chapter in my book titled 29 because I was 29 years old when I first learned about the issue of men's violence against women. The other part was that I've been doing work around social issues that were always about drugs, alcohol, things that you do to yourself. This was an issue or something that you do to somebody else that really made me feel like, and because masculinity and men were the perpetrators, I was this iconic guy, this iconic man as a football player. And so I had to debunk a lot of the myths about masculinity that were leading to violence against women. So
Don McPherson is here. He has a book called You Throw Like a Girl, The Blind Spot of Masculinity, which I think I could write a book, You Throw Like a Girl, because I was always told I threw like a girl. And and in hindsight, I should have said thank you.
Right?
You know what I'm
Girls
saying?
are strong.
I know.
So when you talk about some of the toxic traits of masculinity, what is it that you think are the biggest perpetrators right now?
Of
toxic masculinity. What do you think are some of the things that are being put out there that are causing people to feel this way?
You know, I don't like the term toxic masculinity because it doesn't allow men a lane to come to the conversation.
I agree.
The toxic masculinity indicts being male. We've conflated the violence and all the bad parts of what happens with men and violence against women. We've conflated that with being male, and that's not true. And we also ignore the continuum of masculinities, right? It's a very broad understanding of what it means to be a man. And so I don't like the term toxic masculinity because it narrows men to this violent, misogynistic identity, which is what we are not.
Right, because you can still be very masculine and be a great person that is not holding women down.
Correct.
And lifting them up.
Correct.
I agree with you on that.
So, okay. By the way, the book is out. It's a brand new book, right?
Yes, came out in September.
And how's
I wrote it 20 years ago.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
But things have changed since then, have they not?
Yes, they have. And 20 years ago, I wrote it. I was on Oprah. And I was,
tell this story.
Yes, I was.
listen to this story.
This is awesome because I was so ready for this, to be on Oprah's show talking about violence against women, and told her about the book in mid-show. She gave me the name of a publisher, got back here to New York, called the guy. He called me back immediately because, of course, I name-dropped Oprah. How cool was that?
Right.
And within a day, the book was on its way. Within a week, he rejected it.
And what did he say?
And what he said was essentially, and by the way, the rejection letter is in my book now. And what he said was, the people who need this book don't buy books. And the people who buy books don't need your book. Oh. In other words, women don't need you telling them that violence against women is a real thing and this is why it happens. And men who are the problem don't buy books. And I found that to be so sexist against men.
It is.
Yeah, right.
I mean, dumbasses read books all the time.
Thank you. We might not get anything out of it, but we read them, right? Exactly. And so that was I was so offended by that notion that men don't care. What I was writing about, the last chapter of my book is titled "Be Your Son's Father, Not Your Father's Son." In other words, we have to be better than our fathers. And the whole point of the book was, how do we help men navigate this thing that we've never been taught, this thing we never discussed, and what does it mean to be a whole, loving, caring man? And
there you go. Don McPherson is here. The book is called You Throw Like a Girl, The Blind Spot of Masculinity. We got to take a break. More coming up right after, right? We're scaring a break? Yes. Okay. We'll be back right after this. Another thing about Don McPherson, our guest, he was a quarterback for the Eagles. So, look, another connection.
Yeah.
To Philly.
Love it.
Yeah.
Also, Syracuse University. You were the quarterback there. And, I major awarded quarterback.
Yeah.
Come on, you're not a little.
Last night was the College Football Hall of Fame dinner uptown, and I was there for that. And it's my 11th year going to that dinner, and I'm a college football geek, so it was awesome to be in that room with the new class of Hall of Famers.
There's something about Syracuse students. I mean, we have Allie Gold over here. We have Smiling Steven, who's producing us in Philly, and we have David Katz, my business partner, not my sexual partner.
There's still time.
The day is young.
Yes, the day is young.
Let's get back to work because we were having such a great conversation, and Adam will agree. Adam's listening to us up in Connecticut. Hi, Adam. How you doing?
Good, Elvis. How are you doing?
Doing very well. So Don McPherson has a book out called You Throw Like a Girl, The Blind Spot of Masculinity. And, of course, Danielle asked Don why. Again, just in a nutshell, why did you feel this book was so important for us to have on the market today?
Because I think there is a real need for a conversation with young men in particular. When we talk about violence against women, we typically talk about the impacts on women and girls. We're not talking about the impact on men and boys. And so there needs to be a robust conversation about what's going on with men when you think about all the different issues that are going on that relate to suicide and depression and mental health issues, that men are not a part of that conversation. And the conversation around preventing violence against women and men's health are the same conversation.
I want you to pick up this book. Does it sound like something you need to read and learn more about?
Yeah, I'm a pretty young guy. I do like to read books, but this sounds like a pretty interesting thing to become a little bit more knowledgeable on.
I think that Adam represents a lot more men out there than we know.
All right, thank you. You guys have a great show.
Well, you too. And, thank you very much. Thanks for spending time with us. All right, so let's talk to Danielle, who is the mother of two boys.
Yes.
What, 10 and 14?
Yep. 10 and 14.
Go.
So let's do this. Yeah. Why is it important for either maybe my husband to read the book,
yes,
or maybe my 14-year-old to read the book?
Yeah. You often hear the term microaggressions when it comes to the workplace and when it comes to how men and women and LGBTQ and folks interact and all the little subtle things that we do that offend, and we do that to boys constantly. One of the other authors on the imprint that I'm published on the Akashic books is a former NFL player who talked about suicide because he thought that when he finished playing football that no one would care or no one would like him or love him because he was gay. And it was all the things he heard every single day that were homophobic, that were telling him that if you're not a real tough, hard-nosed football player guy, then you don't matter, to the point that you shouldn't be alive. And those kinds of things that boys hear that's why the title You Throw Like a Girl matters, because it is the language that we hear as boys from a very, very early age.
It's true.
Yeah.
That you're either a real man or you don't matter.
Right.
And so it's so important for men to have this conversation so they know how to talk to their sons in a way that does not diminish who their sons are, but lifts them up to be whole, loving, caring people, as well as being tough little boys. Because we're gonna be little knuckleheads anyway,
yeah,
right? That's a given. But how do you raise them also to be loving and caring at the same time?
Nice.
So for people who are maybe processing this idea for the first time, because it's a big idea, right? And there are a lot of different areas that could be changed. What would be your jumping off point or your one piece of advice for people who say, I want to make a difference. Where do I start?
Starts with the conversation. And it's a hard, like to your point, I don't think that the concept is hard. I think people know it. I think men know instinctively that I'm not living my wholeness. I'm not living an honest life because I'm not fully expressing who I am in my wholeness. I think men know that part. And so the difficult part is how do you start the conversation? As I said, 20 years ago, I had to explain to men there's a problem. Now it's like, okay, how do we talk about this? And I always tell people, get comfortable with the uncomfortable conversation. And that's what we have to do.
Yeah, if you're raising a child, I must assume. And the only child I have is a schnauzer, so okay, I'm off the hook. I'm good. He's cool to everyone. No, he's cool to everyone. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's actually a redirection in parenting, I must assume. The bottom line, and Don actually said this, is stop raising a-holes. I mean, no, really. I mean, it's straight to the point. You teach your kids not to be jerks.
Yeah.
Don't ignore the fact that they could become one.
Right.
You know?
And what masculinity does, what the culture of men does, is that we validate that. I mean, we have got a guy in the White House who bragged about sexual assault, right? So we validate that a-hole. And we say that that's a real man. And that's a problem for so many young people, so many young men who are in what I refer to in the book as the performance of masculinity. They're really sweet, good people. The problem is they're performing something that is antithetical to who they really are. And they're performing this notion of masculinity as being uncaring, unfeeling, insensitive, and impervious to pain. And all those things become the toxicity of masculinity.
There you go. And one more line before you leave.
Yeah.
Sex. We teach our kids about sex.
So many
this
years
is my
ago,
favorite line from Don.
And it's one of my favorites too. Many years ago, I was at a conference. I heard a woman say that we tell kids that sex is dirty, immoral, it's going to cause unwanted pregnancies, STIs, all these horrible things. But save it for the one you love.
What a gift.
What a gift.
Oh, thank you.
Really makes all the sense in the world.
There you go.
So the new book is called You Throw Like a Girl, The Blind Spot of Masculinity. Very important dialogue, very important conversation. And the uncomfortable conversations are actually sometimes challenging to the point where they're fun once you know that you're having a great conversation that could move all of us forward. And I think you've really started that. Thank you, Don.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Don McPherson. By the way, if you want to meet Don, he's going to be in our stomping grounds, Huntington, Long Island, at Book Review.
Yeah. There you go.
And this is where I met Don the night we were out there doing a book signing.
Yeah.
And we went to Besito. We had great Mexican food and margaritas. And then we slithered on over to Book Review in Huntington, Long Island. What time are you there tonight?
7 p.m.
7 o'clock tonight. Meet Don McPherson. Thank you, Don.
My pleasure.
Have
Thank
a great
you.
day. We'll be
All
back
right.
after this.